Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending upon where you are in the world. Thank you for joining the Spiritist Talk series promoted by the United States Spiritist Federation, and we have it every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. We are so excited today about having our guest Wagner de ASSIS with us today, and just to dive into the new feature film that he's going to be working on, The Fox Sisters. But before we bring him on, we also wanted to share a couple of quick, brief updates and things to look out for and keep on your radar, as well as we're going to show a very brief, short, little a 2-minute video about the project that Wagner is going to be working on. So a couple of quick things. If you don't already know, there's a podcast like series, Psychology and Spirituality, that it has a new episode every Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, as well as please note and register if you haven't already. The United States Spiritist Federation is hosting the 17th, you heard that, 17th United States Spiritist Symposium in Portland, Oregon. The topic is Spiritual Path to Mental Balance. It's on September 30th. If you haven't already registered, please run and go do that. You can see the link there below, spiritsymposium.org, for more information about that. Now, before we bring on our special guest, whom we are so honored to have, we will share a brief video about the project that he is working on, and we're so excited to talk about.
Country and took the whole world into a very different level of understanding. All the movies that I've made so far. I'm Wagner de ASSIS, and I'm here to announce you my next movie, which is going to be the story of the Fox Sisters. The film will tell the story of two sisters, Margaret and Kate, born in upstate New York and thrust into world renown by the events of the loud knocks, thugs, and bangs that surrounded them, though to be provoked by the spirits entities of the deceased. In a lifespan of 40 years marked by a huge rise to fame and subsequent downfall, the Fox Sisters' story shows how two young women's spontaneous psychic abilities led them to be scrutinized and also invited to sit in front of the U.S. President, university deans, scholars, scientists, and the wealth of elite of rapid changing American society from the mid to late 1800s. I'm very anxious to tell this story. I think this is an important story to be told to the American audience and also worldwide, because it has to do with the spiritual movement that took the whole country and took the whole world into a very different level of understanding. All the movies that I've made so far has this point of view of the spiritual life, and I hope that you join us and help us to do it. There's a lot of benefits that are going to be given to the ones who support us. They are all listed here in the website, and I truly appreciate all the support that is coming, and I know it comes from the heart, and this is what we're going to put in the making of the story, our hearts and souls, to do the best movie that we can. Thanks a lot.
Even after so many years of doing this, we've had some technical difficulties there. But hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We're so excited. If you haven't already noticed, we've just watched a little tidbit about the upcoming work that Wagner is going to be working on. And before we start our interview, we wanted to give a little bit of a background of who Wagner de ASSIS is. He's originally from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. He founded Cinematic Films in '97 and has written, produced, and directed more than 10 blockbuster films, TV series, telenovelas, and documentaries. He's a renowned director and producer and is the man behind the blockbuster films such as NOSSOS, which you might have already seen, also known as Astral City on Netflix, and Kardec, seen by millions of audiences worldwide. Wagner, we are super excited. And before we begin, we just wanted to let those who are watching, please share your questions, your comments in the chat. And we would love to share them at some point during this interview if you would like. We do have already some questions that were sent to us that we're going to be sharing and digging more deep into. Wagner, first and foremost, thank you. We're honored to have you with us. It's a privilege, and we definitely want to make the best use of your time and our time to really hear more about this project, about the feature film, The Fox Sisters. Now, before we begin, did I miss anything about your bio? Is there anything additional you wanted to add? Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into this.
Hi, Kristen. How's everyone? Hello, everyone. It's all fine. It's just really strange to talk about me sometimes. And when I start reading all the things that we've accomplished throughout these more than 25 years now, it becomes like a list of things. And then suddenly we just realize, oh, you know what? Let's go straight to the point. Let's see what really matters. And I appreciate all you've said, and thanks a lot for all the support. I'm excited as well. Actually, I'm always excited when I'm thinking about movie making, and I'm always open to explain people how the process of making movies and how we pick up our stories and so on and so forth. And every space that we have, I think it is an opportunity to come to people and spread and also listen, but also talk and get the ball moving. And I think it is a great opportunity. Thanks everyone about the TV Say, the Spiritist Talks, and everybody else who's gonna watch it. I truly appreciate it.
Yeah, sure. And I'm sure there are millions of us that appreciate the work that you're doing. But maybe just to help frame up and give a little bit of insight to those our viewers who are watching or listening to this. Originally, you started out as a journalist, and then at some point you switched over to being a filmmaker. What made you switch, and what was the idea? What was the drive behind it that inspired you?
Well, that is in the beginning of the late 19s. 1990, when I graduated as a journalist here in Rio de Janeiro, where I was born and where I live. And I guess it's about telling stories. So as a journalist, I would be telling stories of the real life. And I still have a journalist inside of me living very, very intensely. And this journalist drives me to do documentaries sometimes and books. As a writer, I did a lot of books as a writer, books about backstages, books about biographies, and so on. And so when I first started working at Global TV as a journalist, and I was like 22 years old, I remember this day, I just saw an actor. He was rehearsing alone, and he was rehearsing as there were like millions of people around him. And I said that was so powerful, the amount of energy he was putting in one simple rehearsing. And I said, this is really intense. This is like dealing with reality on another way, on another level. Like when you do fiction, you're inspired in reality. So we choose reality, of course, but you do something that is as intense as reality is. And then I started reading scripts, and I said, oh, you know what? I can do that. I can write scripts as well. And I can change my mind into a dramatic construction way of writing. And then think smoothly, I decided that I wanted to change a little bit from the real life into fiction. And Global was a great school for me. Global TV, which is one of the biggest television networks in the world. I mean, it produces a lot of fictional novellas and series. And being there for like 8 years was more than a college. It was more than a post-graduation. It was like learning from talented people, from learning from the ones who really know how to tell stories in an audio-visual way. So I decided that I had to study more about it. So I went to America because at that time here in Rio, we missed a lot of film schools. There was only one film school that we could really rely on. It was far away from my house. And then I said, you know what? There's one place that it gives you opportunity to shoot and to learn. And this is America, right? And even either in LA or rather in New York. So I went to the New York Film Academy in 1996. It was one of the first classes there, and it was like a discovery moment for me, like writing, producing, and shooting, and post-producing, and releasing short films. And this is, you know what, I can do that. I'm gonna do that for the rest of my life. And right away, when I came back, I was still working for Global. I decided to found a small production company, which actually had my name on it, but it was awful. I mean, nobody was going to see movies from Wagner Justice Productions. So then I changed it to Cinetica Films.
So it's all about storytelling and wanting to tell this really important story that really not only the American public but worldwide is so thirsty to know more about, which is the afterlife and what happens. What got you interested in telling the story of things like the occult or the esoteric, and why that genre and not another genre?
Yeah, I think that's the greatest question of my life. How do you pick up the stories? How do you choose? How do you decide that you want to work for 5 years, for 10 years on one single project that is going to tell one single story? And I think there is a joint, it's a merge between my professional life and my personal, not even choice. I shouldn't say choice. My personal interests in terms of my personal research, my personal demands as well. So, like answering who we are, where we came from, what is God, what is in the invisible world, and what is the spiritual life. Those questions, they always been along with me throughout my life since I was a kid, and being at spiritual centers and watching mediums work. And to me was kind of really astonishing and revealing. And it is a little bit as Kardec, what is indivisible? What are these forces in the invisible who makes the tappings, or who makes the table running, the dance? And to me, it was like, it's much more than what we can see. It's much more than we can, the prime instincts. So the moment that I saw that I could pick up my personal interests, which I think is what an artist should do. An artist should be playing in his own universe. You're not going to tell stories of things that doesn't really matter to you. You can do that, but I don't recommend, because it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt. It's going to take a lot of time. And when we see the story in the theaters, and you see the story in the screen, it's not going to touch you. So when I saw that I could bring the best of my personal wills and interests and demands and studies and whatever that would fill my heart and soul to the professional field, then I said, oh, you know what? It's going to be a long and winding road, but it's going to pay off sometime. And I'm still seeking for the payoff, but I'm traveling, and that's not what I'm doing.
That is awesome. And so for those who may not be familiar, the North Americans, Americans or any English speaker who may not be familiar with telenovelas and really culturally, the work that you have done, telenovelas and the Brazilian culture and the way that you specifically, the work that you do, it really pulls at our heartstrings. And knowing that, you've had that background, you've worked for many years in Global, who, by the way, is one of the, not the only, but one of the largest producers of telenovelas and are excellent at it. And so you're able to, with all of your experience, tell this story, and we wanted to share that for those who may not be familiar with it. So, and we've heard this feedback from non-Brazilians and North Americans, those from the U.S. or Canada, that when they've watched Nossolar, when they've watched Kardec, even when they've watched other projects that you've worked on, it really tugs at our heart. It really touches us deep on a spiritual level. So with that in mind, it begs the question, have you experienced while on set or during in the preparation for any of your projects that you've worked on, or if you've wanted to speak directly to your upcoming project about the Fox sisters, have you had any type of supernatural experience that you could share, or even like a really profound insight, or you woke up from a dream, and anything that you could share? We know that other filmmakers have shared interesting experiences that some might refer to as supernatural during producing certain types of films, such as in this genre.
Yeah, Chris, I mean, I should say that I feel that every time when I'm working with this kind of themes and with these kinds of stories. But that's different from saying, "Oh, I had an official supernatural experience." And I say that because it is part of me. It's part of my duty. It's part of my work to do the job. Some people ask me, "Oh, do you have some kind of mediumity, medium that could help you out when doing the stories?" Of course I do, but not officially, because if I had that officially, spirits would do that for me. So I had nothing to do with it. I would be just a mechanical medium and write the scripts and direct the stories. So dealing with the subjects, dealing with these stories, they talk a lot to our souls, and it pushes a lot of buttons inside of us. Me, either do I. When I'm writing, when I'm watching the scene, when I'm writing, I get emotional. I cry when I get to the end of a screenplay. When I get to the end of the first draft of the first screenplay, I if I don't get emotional, there's no truth in there. So from the moment that when I read the story, when I say, you know what? Oh, this can be a movie. The story of these three sisters can be a movie. That brings to my soul the fuel that I need to take me all the way along. So to me, that is supernatural. To me, that brings me out of the reality, out of the regular way of telling a comedy, of doing a romantic film. Even a romantic film would bring us to another level, of feelings. So I would say that every time, every day that I'm working with these stories, that I'm doing movies that talk to the souls, to the spirits, and so on, I get it back as well. It fills my heart and soul a lot, and that it keeps going on. Like when people watch Astro City, when people watch Kardec, or when people watch the other movies that are, unfortunately, they are not able to be seen in America yet, but we're working a lot to have them delivered in America sooner, because I think this is something that we have to pay off to people as well. So when people watch it and give me feedbacks, it fills my heart as well. You see, the story touched those group. The story touched that person's heart, and it changed her way of looking to this subject. We don't do movies in order to change people. That's stupid. That's dumb. We just want to tell the stories, and of course, as learning how these stories are powerful, they have a lot they have a lot of power, invisible, I should say that, and it's a remarkable experience to learn from people how the stories get to them. And so it's an infinite circle of getting supernatural feelings, and supernatural evidences that we're not this flesh and blood only. We are much more than that. And this has been on Earth since Earth is Earth, since man is on Earth. So even though if you go through the scientific way, even though if you just go through the dramatic, or to the romantic, or through the any kind of stories, if it talks to people about our origins, our roots as human beings, it's gonna shake us inside, and that's amazing. It's part of I think, Kirsten, this is what really fuels me. This what it feeds me every time. That's why we do this. I'm not sure if I was clear enough, but I'm trying.
perfectly clear. Yeah, that was actually really beautiful. And thank you for sharing that testimony with us. You know, there's a lot, there's a richness in the spiritualism and spiritism in the history here in the U.S. Andrew Jackson Davis, the famous seer Edgar Cayce, and many others. Why the story of the Fox sisters? What was it about these three sisters that moved you to say, this is a story I want to tell. It needs to be heard.
Great question, Kirsten. I think I'm trying to get into the first thought, and then maybe, I'm sorry, the first thought that occurred to me when I got involved truly with the story of the sisters was a triangle. And I should explain that. Why a triangle? The sisters as pioneers, as the ones who were opening the roads, who through them a whole movement struck America, even though the movement was there. They are, I would say, they are the first point of a triangle. They are first basis of a triangle. And then this line crosses the Atlantic and gets in Europe and calls the attention of a professor and even though a lot of intellectuals in Europe. And they also decide to dig into the spiritual world, to the spiritual life, to the spiritual truths. And years later, this line comes back to Brazil, when in the beginning of the 20th century, we had already a spiritual federation, but then we had a real blossoming of the whole spiritualism movement as well in Brazil, and mostly because of Chico Xavier, a remarkable medium here in Brazil. And then when I saw their stories, when I saw the importance of their pioneerism, I don't know if I should say so, but when I saw how hard it was for them, when I saw how they had to fight against invisible challenges that later on they were completely explained by the studies of Kardec and even others, as being mediums, as dealing with the unknown. The triangle crossed. The triangle closed its line. So the other side of the triangle, which was from Brazil to America, and saying, you know what? It would be interesting if a Brazilian filmmaker would tell their stories, because the angle would be, we are all connected. Even the European movement, the Brazilian movement, they just came after the American movement. And that kind of became really relevant when I was studying and I saw how America was a country in the 19th century, in the second half of 19th century, was a country really devoted into the spiritualism in general. People were interested in any kind of phenomena. People were interested in any kind of things that could explain more about life rather than life itself. I think this all came in a second, as in a quantum thought. And I said, you know what? This story should be told. It's relevant. It talks about an America that has been somehow hidden. And I know the spiritual movement is trying to rebirth it. It's trying to bring it back, the power of this country in terms of a language that can be spoken everywhere in the world. There's a lot of power in there, in terms of communication, in terms of the, even though the exportation of its culture. Why the culture of the 19th century America, with so many different religions trying to live together in a way, even though there was problematic sometimes, but I mean, all those cultural and religious soup that was hidden sometimes throughout the 20th century. Maybe it's time to bring it back. Maybe it's time to reflourish it and see what comes out of it. And why not telling the story of pioneers, of two girls with their older sister. When I say two girls, we should never forget Leah, which is the older sister. And actually, I think the story is going to be told through her point of view as well. Most important of that. We should not forget them. We should not even try to think them as frauds, because they weren't frauds and they weren't a hoax, as a lot of newspapers and a lot of Google search says that. If you do a little further Google research, you're going to see that all this fraud and hoax came from an interview that Maggie Fox has given late in her life. And she just repented after, she said, I want to rephrase it. I wasn't in my mind. And then the strike was done, and the headlines were the death blow of spiritualism. That's not true. Maybe it came as a truth, as people didn't decide to look for themselves, to investigate themselves as well, and they just agreed what the headlines were saying. So it's time to say, you know what? They were not hoax. They were not frauds. And wait to see their relationships, how hard it was for them in terms of being sisters and being family and having to deal with all those remarkable and unknown situations. Katie was a materialization medium. Through her ectoplasm were flowing out. It was floating this room, and spirits would appear from them. So this is one major phenomena, even though if you could do psychic writing or channeling or psychic views, they were filled with that potential, with that mediumship. And there they are, the three of them. You see, they are sad at that picture. That it talks to me a lot, because why? They had to be serious to take the picture, but you can see through their eyes, they were not dealing easily with that situation. Like lines in front of their doors, and people wanting to talk to the deceased ones. America was also going to the Civil War a little later, in time. And Maggie wanted to get married. Kate wanted to be happy. And Leah was finding herself a new redemption for her life. She was a widow, she was a young widow. And then she suddenly found, through that fame, a potential in her own life, to tell the truth. She wrote a book. She found herself a husband. She came to live in a wealthy place, in a wealthy house in New York. And they fought against each other because they didn't know how to deal with that. There's a lot of drama there, Christine. Yeah. I think it should be told. It is relevant because it brings a part of America that was seeking for freedom. Somehow, there was an abolitionist movement strong. When they were in Rochester, they had moments when they were dealing with anti-abolitionists like Isaac Post and other person and other people who were trying to make America free from slavery, and somehow they were always trying to show people a different way of being free as well, not only from legal stuff in the material world, in our world, but in a spiritual way. It has to do a lot with nowadays, and it has to do a lot with America. Where's this America? I speak too much. Sorry.
No. We're happy to hear your story. But before we go on, I wanted just to remind folks that are watching, in the description of the video here, in the description box rather, some information how they can donate, as well as the QR code that's there. For those of you who are, we wanted to encourage you to donate to, nowadays with the QR code, if you don't know how to use it, you just, if you have an iPhone or a smartphone, you can open your camera app on your phone and just scan the QR code, and it'll lead you to the steps on how to donate towards this project. And so we highly encourage you. You touched on something really important, Wagner. You touched on the climate of the U.S., what was happening at that time, as well as, which may not always be that known, the suffrage movement that was happening in New York.
As well. Yeah, I forgot to say that.
and one of the founders actually, I believe, went to go see the Fox sisters and
Yes.
had a reading with them. So all these things were going on, and I think what you said is monumental. The suffrage movement, right? The point of that was to free women, right? But here came the Fox sisters talking about a different and more profound kind of freedom for all of humanity. It touched on a much deeper part of all of us, which I think is really fascinating. We do have some questions from the audiences we
All right.
would like to go to. One from Luis Valaca. Oops.
There you are.
Okay. He says, Wagner, can you share something about your film, The Messengers, that should be launched in January?
Yes, Luis. I can. Well, that's the sequel of Astor City. That's a second book. That's a second movie. It's the story of this colony, this spiritual city that hovers over Rio de Janeiro and part of Brazil. There's a lot of spiritual cities all over the world. By the way, throughout the story of the Fox sisters, we learned that they visited a spiritual city that hovers over New York, and they have described a little bit of this city at that time. And so there's a lot of spiritual cities all over the world. They are taking care, they're sheltering and trying to help us in terms of the exchanging, of material life and spiritual life. So the movie is going to be released in Brazil, and we're working hard to find the same way that the first movie, Nosso Lar, that was released in 2010, and now you can watch in America at Gaia.com, and it's there, and other places that we're still developing a negotiation to show Nosso Lar. So Nosso Lar 2, The Messenger, is going to be released in January 25. The 25th of January. It's going to be a huge release, and I hope everyone in Brazil and heads to the movies at that days, to the theaters at that days, on those days, and can pick up and fill up the rooms.
Oh, I'm sure it'll be a blockbuster hit for sure. We do have another question from Mafsa, and I'm going to add a little bit to this question. No, one second. Can you talk about the role of music in your films? How did you connect with Philip Glass for Nosso Lar? And just for those who may not be familiar, Philip Glass is a
genius.
A genius. For those who may not know, I mean, he's huge here in the U.S. for writing film scores. He's written so many famous films. So I think this just adds to your it adds to the fact that how special the films that you've worked on, and how precious they are and how valuable they are. So, and I would say not just for Nosso Lar, but for the Fox sisters, do you have something in mind for that feature film in terms of will you be using Philip Glass? Will it be somebody else, or you're not even sure yet? It's just sort of
right. Great. Okay, you finished. Sorry, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I have something very intense in mind, but I can't tell yet because we're under negotiation. So I might spoil the negotiation.
Okay. No, that's exciting.
However, and that's why one of the reasons that we need the gap funding from the crowdfunding campaign. That's all the difference of doing a great production or doing a production that is worthy of, but it could go a little bit further. And that's why we're doing this campaign, people. That's why we're searching for people who not only donate, but who understand the value of the story, who understand and who want to be part of it, because one of the benefits are being in the set. So if you want to come to the set and see us shooting, if we had the chance to shoot in America, and you're going to be welcome. And so I think this is the movement that generates. I'm gonna answer about Philip Glass, but opening an idea of crowdfunding is maybe something very, very important that's going to come in the near future. So once we succeed with that, and I hope we do succeed, I can understand how important I can count on people who can count on those stories, who can understand how important it is to do those stories. And I think the reason why Philip Glass decided to say yes to Astor City composing each soundtrack was a story. So we just had a connection with him, first professional connection. We sent the screenplay, and then a few weeks later, he answered us and said, "You know what? I love this kind of stories. I can do the tracks for you. You know, I can compose it." And then the amazing thing is that when we decide to speak about how he would like, what kind of scores he would compose and so on, we just spoke about spiritual life, because that's all we wanted to talk about. You know, we just spoke about, if life goes on and life goes on, what happens? Oh, we are the same. Oh, we are the same. Yes, but we don't have our disguises, our material, a way of pretending we are not who we are. And what about those shadows? Oh, those shadows, they generate a lot of imagination about them, you know. Oh, you know what? I might write a score for the shadows. So he called it For the Shadows. And this is how it all came very naturally, because I credit all the yes to the movie, all the success of the movie. I really cried. I know I had my work. I know I did a lot of things. I know I had my importance in that process. But whether I didn't have a strong story, that wouldn't happen. So the story belongs as well to Chico Xavier, the medium, and to André Luiz, the spiritual, who wrote it. And it talks about something that has to be told about our realities, our new realities. So it was amazing speaking and doing work with Philip Glass. And music has a really important role in the movie. Well, and I take care personally of each note, is each sentence, each. I'm not a musician, and I don't understand about musician roles, but I know when you touch the heart. I know when the sequence is there and fills my heart, my eyes with tears, and that's why we keep seeking when we're editing the soundtrack to all the stories. You know, this is a very supernatural moment. I should say that.
No, for sure. No, music is very powerful, for sure. Again, and another plug for those who want to to donate, to give support to this project. Again, a reminder for those who might just got on the live now. You can look in the description box. You can find the QR code here, and you can donate. And donate for something that you believe in, for a project that is really here to open up the mind, to free people, and to touch people's hearts ultimately. So if that interests you at all, we encourage you to go ahead and donate whatever you can to this amazing project and this work that Wagner Diaz is working on, along with many others. We do have some other questions. Let me see. From Anna Morena. Do you have a specific plan to reach the younger generation, such as Gen Z, with your films and stories?
Hi, Anna. Yes, yes. Well, I've done a movie a few years ago called The Indigo Child. It's not available in America, unfortunately. It's about the Indigo generation, and I'm going forth with that. You know, we're speaking about the new generations that came after the Indigo and Crystal ones, and we do have some plans within that. I would say we have like 20 stories to be told. They are once in a, I mean, once in a, well, how's this again? I should do one at a time. You know, I shouldn't go further. But I have an eye on that, and later on, sooner or later, we're gonna go back into into that subject. Thanks for
Absolutely.
asking.
And what's really interesting, for those who might not know some facts about the U.S. in recent years, there has been, especially from the younger generation, there's been a decline in attendance at churches and at different places, and an increase in an interest in the occult, in wanting to learn more, to understand something deeper, and not just looking at something from a dogmatic perspective. So definitely, and if you look on TikTok, on social media, Facebook, there are so many content creators that are, this is the genre that they're focusing on. So we can say for sure that there is a deep interest and desire to know more about, and especially to tell the story of the Fox sisters, which almost seems as if for some who are not in the spiritual community may not know about it. It's sort of a forgotten part of history. Again, unless you're into spirituality, the occult, the esoteric, and all those types of things, or spiritism, you may not know this rich history that America has. So we are so grateful, Wagner, that you are telling this story.
And it is an English spoken story. It's gonna be released in America and everywhere else in the world, because we have that possibility to send links to the ones who have taken part in the contribution, and they can watch the movie as well. We can send private links to them, and they can watch the movie, even though if they are not in the distribution, marketing distribution. And it is the first step of doing stories in English, and I think it's the first of several other steps. I've been meeting myself with amazing stories, and they have to do a lot with this new movement that is coming about people deciding to have their own spirituality, people deciding to find themselves the answers, the most specific and important answers. And to me, I mean, the spiritual research, the spiritual quest is the most important challenge of everyone's life. And I'm also taking care and taking attention to these movements of the youth, even though in Brazil they seem to be part of it, seem to be digging questions and looking for questions for themselves, which is an amazing thing, because it brings a rationalization of faith. It brings a rationalization brings reason to the table. I should say that. And bringing reason to the table, it helps a lot. This is what helped me when I was young, when I was reading Kardec's books, and when I was reading about the spiritual reality, and anything that I couldn't really understand, it didn't serve for me. I had to understand everything. Of course, there are limits, but those limits are to be pushed further as long as possible. You know, when I started to attend materializations meetings in Rio, that is something that really changes your mind. You know, really strikes you on the floor and say, you know what, you don't know anything. When you see a spirit materializing in front of you through a medium, and the spirit talk to you, and then he disappears, and your life's not going to be the same after that. It's going to change. And why not? Why can't everyone else have this kind of experience? This is something that I pose myself as well. And the answer is it will. People are going to have their own personal experiences. People are going to have their personal living situations. They're going to feel them and say, you know what? This is the truth. And this is what is going to pushes you throughout your life.
Absolutely. Maybe. Absolutely. There's a thirst for it. That's for sure. There's a thirst for it, not just in the U.S. market, but globally. There's a thirst for deeper understanding. We have another question from our public, coming from the Spiritist Medical Association here in the U.S. The question is, where are the scenes going to be filmed for the Fox sisters, and right. Can you release any information about the artist who will be in the movie?
Yes, I can, but not now. I'm just in the final steps of closing of wrapping the casting. So I still need a little more time. And if if the campaign succeeds, we're going to shoot all the exteriors in America, nearby Rochester or in the northeast of the United States, because this is where the story took place. We need to find places where we can relate to the past, and that's a location situation that we are searching for already. But sooner we are going to be releasing more about the casting and more about where the shots are where they're going to be filmed.
Wonderful. So excited about that. And thank you for those of you who are posting in questions. Please feel free to keep sending. Yes, please feel free to keep sending us questions. And we're gonna again plug for those who have just joined this live. If you were interested, if you have a heart for sharing and enlightening others, and you want this to be brought to the big screen, we highly encourage you to look in our description box of this video for more information how you can donate. There's a QR code on the screen as well that will show you what to do, how to donate for this amazing project that really it's a project of the heart. Really, this, like Wagner had shared with us, it's about storytelling and telling the story of the Fox sisters. Wagner, do you remember when you first learned about the Fox sisters and when you really began to dive into reading about them? What was it? Was there anything that really struck you as like, wow, that's really interesting? Or was there anything about the story of the sisters or their life surrounding them that really struck you or stood out to you?
I don't remember the specific day, but I remember that I was struck by the melancholy. I mean, I should say I became a lot of nostalgic because they thought a lot for their goals and what was left after they died, what was left after they passed away. And no, there's not much that has been kept from them. You know, all those efforts, all those problems, all those quarrels, all those suffering, all those decisions to help people because they were trying to help people every day. And then suddenly when you look back, you don't see them. So they shouldn't be erased by history. You know, their story should be there. And although there are some books and there has been a few films that were inspired by them, nobody ever told the story that the way it took place, like the 31st of March in 1848, where this became a symbol of the rise of the new spiritualism. What happened in that house?
Oh, it looks like we may have lost connection here for a second, but we will surely get him back. In the meantime, we're going to show you the QR code again. For those of you, we highly encourage you to donate towards this beautiful project that is and Wagner, you are back. Let's bring you back to the, oh, hold on one second, Wagner. I think we lost you for a second. Are you there?
That was very spiritual.
It was supernatural.
It was very, very impressive. I was like, okay,
Yeah.
where was I? I just remembered how we should not let their stories to be erased by the past. You know, we should be. That kind of struck me when I first read everything about them. You know what? A lot of effort, so many things, and people just look back and say, "Oh, they were frauds." That's not true. That's not the way it should do. It should be.
Let me ask you a question, Wagner. Here in the US, there seems to be a culture whenever you see films of this genre that tend to be. Oh, I think we might have had some technical difficulty. Might have lost him again. I'll save my question here in a second. But again, showing you how you can donate. Look in the description box. And also look for more information from the United Spirits Federation, the different programs that we also have and are sharing. As well as, just as a reminder, the Astral City that was released back in 2010, and you can watch that on Prime. And the movie Kardec that Wagner also directed, is on Netflix, entitled Kardec, was released in 2019. If you haven't already watched these films, they are absolutely moving. We highly encourage you to check them out, to see the work of this director and the work that he has done. And hopefully it'll inspire you to want to read more, to learn more, and to share with others, but also to help, to invest, to donate whatever you can, from $1 to $5 to $10 or more, whatever you can spare to invest in this work that is so important for humanity. We do apologize for the technical difficulties. We are trying to get Wagner back. We will continue to try to do that and chat with you about Spiritism and this work that he has been doing. Again, for those of you who may have just been joining us, we are interviewing the director Wagner de Assis, who, for his upcoming feature film, The Fox Sisters. For those of you who may not be aware of their story, you can always Google, go on YouTube. There's been plenty of books written about the Fox Sisters. They're seen as the pioneers, where the explosion of spiritualism here in the United States, how it came to be, was through them, was popularized rather through them. Also, as a reminder, if you haven't already done so, we have the up-and-coming Spiritist Symposium, the 17th Spiritist Symposium in Portland, Oregon on September 30th. There is still time to register. Folks, you can still buy your airline ticket, and it will be a very enriching event, to say the least. And also, don't miss out on the weekly podcast-like series, Psychology and Spirituality, A Bridge to a Better Life, based on the works of Joanna DeAngelis. It's every Friday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And again, you can access more information on the website shown here, as well as on the United States Spiritist Federation website as well. As we continue to try to bring our guest back, he's trying to come back in. We will keep trying here. Folks, keep sharing your questions, any questions that you have for Wagner, the director of this upcoming film, and many other films that you all have seen already, such as Astral City or No Solar in its original title in Portuguese, as well as the other films such as Kardec, and many others as well that he's worked on that are producing. So, yay, we have Wagner back. That's okay.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. It's a part of technology. We flow with it. We go with it. It's quite all right.
Don't be. It's just not being nervous and let it go.
Yeah, let it go. Where were we last? We were. There was a question. Oh yes. So we were talking about how here in the U.S., this genre of movies, when they talk about and touch on the afterlife, spirits, or ghosts, as some refer to them as, it tends to be connected with super creepy, scary horror films such as Sixth Sense. There's one with Nicole Kidman called The Others. Super, like, kind of scary. But when we've watched your films like No Solar, like Kardec, it doesn't have that scary, creepy effect. Can you talk about that? Is it your hope to kind of dispel that that creepiness, for lack of a better term, and make it more natural? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, I think you had the right words. I mean, it's not only about exposing the genre as a horror movie or it's using those background situation as part of reality. We might have horror stories throughout the spiritual world,
Mm-hmm.
I I keep saying that if I had to do a horror movie with the things that are related as the horror, as the life in the afterlife, sometimes it becomes a horror movie, indeed. But it's about using that reality as a natural thing, and then we might fit into different genres. We can go into a road movie. We can do a drama or romantic movie, on all the specific genres that are consolidated as genres as well. So we don't want to do a new genre. They say, oh, it's a spiritual movie. It is not a spiritual movie. The movie that tells stories about things that happen in the spiritual point of view of life.
Mm-hmm.
So if your life doesn't end, how do you deal with your former incarnations? How do you deal with the idea that you are in a family that has to be together for some specific reason? How do you deal with the idea that we are surrounded by invisible beings that had material bodies like us, like we have now? How do you deal with the idea that there are people living in other planets and they don't need to be mean or rude, and they don't want to destroy Earth most of the times, being extraterrestrials, and the idea of several planets with different kinds of spirits? That's part of the whole spirituality description, and dealing with that brings us the possibility of looking to life in a different way. I've shot a movie. We released a movie this year called "No One Belongs to Anyone." It is from a book of a writer called Zíbia Gasparetto. She's a writer. She's a medium. She wrote millions and millions she sold millions and millions of books in Brazil. And the story is about a toxic relationship, a jealousy from a husband that was uh, uh, totally obsessed by his wife in terms of control and so on. And of course, that would be a regular story of a tragic situation. But how tragic this would be if we'd say, what happens after he died? Oh, what happens after he died? He kept on pursuing her. So the obsession didn't end. So how do you deal with that new paradigm? Because how do you deal with the idea of being jealousy gets you to different zones, to different vibrations, to different connections with different people who want to destroy other people, as a leveling, as symphony would say that. So it is the point of view, looking to a family drama through the spiritual point of view. I think this is very enriching for some reason, and this is what I keep searching through all the stories that we tell.
Absolutely. With a few minutes left, we just wanted to remind folks they can watch NOSSOS on Prime Video. They can watch the film that you directed, Kardec, on Netflix. There are other films, unless you have access to the films in Brazil, I think through Global Play or something like that. You may not be able to watch some of the other movies. However, these two movies are accessible worldwide. You can find them, you can watch them. And up and coming is the Fox Sisters. Again, one last plug for that, folks. Again, in the description box to donate to this truly work of art, work of love, labor of love that we want to really promote, which is the Fox Sisters, their story. Because really, right, Wagner, their story is our story. We all
Right.
we all go through this in some ways. We all have, the story where we struggle in family and we make poor decisions, but ultimately at the core and the purpose is spirituality, is their connection with the divine, is the real purpose of why we are all here. And I think that is something we are all thirsty for. Wagner, with the 1 minute left, any final thoughts you wanted to share before we wrap things up?
I love the idea that we are putting a group together, a group that wants to make movies together, a group that decides that stories have to be told, and that group not only donating, that group taking part of the idea of even though their names are going to be in the screen, but it's about generating the symphony of a chain of people who are connected to that idea. So once that succeeds, we're not going to stop. There's no limit, so once we have that chain of good reactions, a virtual circle of people understanding that these stories can be told, these stories should be told, they should be told in English, they should be released in America or even any other place, and this is something that we're struggling with other movies. And amazing to understand that we are becoming a group. We are becoming a group of people that have the same kind of interest, and that's going to make us more stronger. That's going to make us stronger and able to do other stories. We have a great example with the series called The Chosen. People gather together and said, you know what? We're going to talk about The Chosen again, the apostles, Christ again. Oh, but everyone knows this story. Not the way we want to tell. So there are a lot of books here in Brazil. There's a lot of books that we want to share, a lot of stories that we can tell in the audiovisual, in the movies and streamings and so on. We are in an industry, and once we have the sources, when we're able to negotiate better when we have the sources. This is why we're doing this gap financing, to do a much better movie, to have much better ways of negotiating rights and deals, and having people accessing the stories the way they should. That's what I'm doing. That's what I live for. And I'm here. My address is my email, my internet addresses are here. This one is from Instagram, but I have also Facebook, Twitter, and so on. We are open to people who wants to come and help. Somewhere there might be someone who understands that this little amount of money can, and it's all or nothing. It's an all or nothing campaign. So the money only gets out of the platform once we achieve the goal, which for me is very important because it shows the credibility of that. I want to thank Fred Gouveia, who are helping me with all this campaign, and all the people who are going to watch and who are going to spread the word. You know what? Let's help this movie. Let's help the movie make, and the American Spirit Federation from Jussara, and I'm sure we're gonna get to different levels very soon, and I'm sure this is one first step of a long walk, a long journey.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
No, thank you so much on behalf of the United States Spirits Federation. Thank you so much for coming and speaking with us. And we were so happy just to have you on this platform and to share this work with others that it is ongoing. And again, we encourage others to donate what they can, get in contact, go in the description box for more information. And before we finalize today, of course, giving our thanks to Wagner, we want to just remind folks that next week, the Spiritism Talk series continues with the presenter Andrea Marcionetto talking about what good is the study of Spiritism after all. It's going to be live September 16th, 2023. Thank you all so much for watching and being part of our show today.
Andrea rocks. Don't forget to watch.